Welcome to Multiverseatile. My name is Jake Long, and this channel is all about superhero movies and shows, so if that's what you're into, you might want to peruse through the channel. Today's video concludes my rewritten Antman and the Wasp Quantumania movie. This is Act 3. You can find links to Acts 1 and 2 videos at the end of this video. Act 3 starts off with Hank and Kang sending Scott through time. Kang tells him that he will send him to be with Cassie in 2018. Scott reiterates that he knows that it won't be the same, but Kang continues to act like he's doing Scott a favor. While trying to engineer time travel, Hank, Kang, and Scott end up creating a probability storm that creates a similar sequence to the one that we see in the actual Ant-Man 3 movie. However, this time, the many different Scotts are reaching for a portal to Cassie from 2018 right after he got stuck in the quantum realm. Kang realizes what he needs to do to fix the problem. He has Scott and Hank continue to work while he leaves the room. He leaves them with guards, of course. Scott admits that a large part of him really wanted to go through that portal and be with Cassie to get back the 5 years that he was gone, even though he knows that the current Cassie would be left alone. Quaz and Jentora are revealed to have sneaked into Kang's capital with Hank. Cassie reveals to them that she sneaked in as well. They reluctantly take her along and break Scott out. Jentora leads them to the old communications room. Scott hacks into the system and sends out a message to all peoples of the quantum realm as far as the signal can reach. He asks for their help in attacking Kang's city. He then speaks directly to Zolom and Veb and says that he needs them to bring something to Kang's central building. The freedom fighters attack in a similar way to the way that they did in the movie. Everyone joins the fight. Cassie grows and takes down MODOK. Krylar joins the fight as well. Kang activates the central building's defense system and nothing gets through the force field. Kang's suit is more powerful than ever before. His soldiers don't stand a chance without him, so Scott, Hope, and Cassie team up to fight him. Kang knocks all three of them away. Kang and his soldiers destroy too many freedom fighters and they start to fall back. Baron Karzar shows up leading Hank's super ants. After the battle between him and the quantum people, Karzar fled and eventually found the ants, who adopted him as their queen. Karzar and the super ants keep Kang busy while the others gather themselves. Scott looks for Zolom and finds him in one of the living buildings. Zolom reveals a blanket containing a few miniaturized plasma fires and some quantum dirt. He asks Scott what he wants to do with them. They set the plasma fires up by the doors of the central building and use the PIM discs and quantum dirt to blow a hole through the shields, destroying the doors in the process. The ant family starts to go in, but Kang sees them and flies towards them. Scott tells them that they should go and get a message out to the real world. Scott grows and knocks Kang away from the entrance. Hank sends a signal out to the real world, and then he sees that they need to destroy the time engine and all of the PIM particles. They destroy everything, and Hank checks to make sure the signal is still going out. They get anxious as they hear the destruction going on outside. Suddenly, Bill Foster speaks into Hank's earpiece, letting him know that they are locking onto their location and they are working on opening a portal for them. Hank tells the others. Jentora, Quaz, and Zolom enter. Jentora tells Hank that if Baron Karzar is left with control of his ants, it will be worse than if Kang stayed because Karzar won't let them live in peace. Quaz uses his psychic device to communicate with Bill Foster. The ant family goes and finds Kang taking on nearly everyone by himself. There are a few dozen soldiers of his left and several ships. Hank assumes command over the ants and has them knock down and restrain Baron Karzar. He then coordinates their efforts on Kang. MODOK comes in and attacks Kang as well. The super ants drag him off. MODOK dies the same way that he did in the movie. I know a lot of people had many issues with MODOK, but my only issue was that he looked a little bit sillier than necessary. After all, he is just a giant head. I'm sure a different MODOK will come along at some point in the world of Marvel. The ant family go back inside the central building and everyone except Scott goes through the portal opened up by Bill Foster. Kang comes through barreling into the room, running toward the portal. His suit is almost destroyed. Scott stops him and they have a fist fight. Jentora and Zolom join the fight. Kang is able to get one of his arm blasters working and disintegrates Zolom. Jentora attacks him, but Kang knocks her down, nearly disintegrating her as well. As Quaz runs over to check on Jentora, Scott grows a few feet and smashes Kang's arm blaster. They fight for a bit and then Kang knocks Scott down. Scott shrinks back to normal. Kang runs to the portal, but Wasp comes back out, knocking Kang back. Kang tells them that they need him to fight his variants. Hope tells Hank to close the portal, and he does so reluctantly. Kang scowls and attacks them. Scott and Hope get out of the way, but Kang presses a few buttons on the console that was next to the portal, and another time engine comes up out of the console along with more PIM particles. He asks them something along the lines of, "Did you really think I was only going to take one shot at this? Janet destroyed my chance last time and I promised myself that wouldn't happen again." Kang presses a button and the vials containing the Pym particles drain as the central building begins to shake. Hope looks at Scott and shows him the different Pym discs in her hand. Kang realizes their plan and yells as he shoots his arm blasters at them. They both shrink. Scott knocks Kang back as Hope flies over to the time engine and throws the Pym discs at it. Kang blasts Scott out of his way and rushes toward the time engine. He gets to it just as the discs activate. The simultaneous shrinking and growing effect causes the time engine to implode, and it takes Kang in a similar manner as it did in the movie. Cassie walks in through the portal to see that everything is okay. Scott tells Jintora that he's sorry that Zolom died fighting Kang. She says that it's not his fault. Scott tells her that he's not sure when, but he'll be back to check on them sometime. Hope says that they'll both be back. Cassie says she'll be back too, and both Hope and Scott say no. Cassie mumbles, "Well, when I'm 18, I can do whatever I want." They give her a look, and Jintora says that once her people have rebuilt, she still wants to go to their world and have Cassie show her around. Cassie smiles and agrees. They all say their goodbyes, and Scott, Hope, and Cassie go through the portal. On the other side of the portal, they are greeted by Hank, Janet, Bill Foster, Agent Wu, Luis, and Kurt. The Hulk is on one of the computer screens via video chat. He waves and Scott waves back. Scott says thank you to Luis and Kurt, and then he starts to look around to see a mess in the lab. There are bags of chips, boxes of pizza, bottles of soda, and 2 sleeping bags. Scott asks Luis how long they were gone and what happened. Luis unleashes one of his famous monologues about him and Kurt barely managing to turn off the quantum vacuum and getting to work trying to figure out how the machine works. They quickly resorted to trying to find Agent Wu's phone number. He was busy and didn't answer. They got hungry, so they got some chips, but that wasn't enough, so they ordered pizza, and finally Wu answered them back, and Wu got in touch with Bruce Banner, who said that they should probably contact Bill Foster, who they probably should have contacted first, but anyway, Luis didn't know how long that would be, so they got some sleeping bags to take a nap because they were exhausted. And then Bill Foster and Agent Wu came over and helped them turn the machine on and send a signal to Hank because Bill figured that Hank would have his earpiece in because he loves talking to his aunts, and he was right. So then they were able to contact Hank and eventually open a portal, and now everyone is here. Scott says, "Oh, okay, but how long were we gone?" Luis says, "Oh yeah, about 5 hours." Scott replies, "5 hours. It's always 5 hours." There's a brief silence while Scott ponders, and then Hulk on video chat says, "Okay guys, I'm glad to see that you're okay. I'm gonna go now. I'll catch up with you later." Everyone says bye, Hulk. Scott says his closing monologue nearly the same as in the movie, except we see the Ant family communicate with Quaz and Jintora, and we see that all is well in the quantum realm, except that Karzar is a potential threat, even though he is locked up in a quantum prison. Scott also worries about Kang's words. Scott also mentions that Hope asks Cassie if she would want to interview for an internship at her company where she has been using Pym particles to help people, and Cassie says yes. Hope explains that she was worried that Cassie might not want to do the internship. At the very end, we also see the Ant family camping together. Cassie's mom and stepdad are there, and so are Luis and Kurt. The post and mid-credit scenes would mostly stay the same, but the Kangs will mention how the Kang that died was a weaker variant. There would be another scene where we see Kang being sucked into the time engine, and he ends up in the area where the TVA resides, only it hasn't been built yet. He then disappears in a flash of light energy. This implies that he can travel in time of his own will. And that is it for the rewritten, reworked Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania movie. Let me know your thoughts if you feel so inclined. As always, thanks for watching, and take care.